All right, let's have a recap of the absolutely mental developments that have happened today when it comes to Elon Musk and Reform UK. Elon almost broke the internet when he said this earlier this afternoon. The Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. He then went on to suggest he'd like Reform MP Rupert Lowe to take over. Farage responded with this. He said, "Well, this is a surprise. Elon is a remarkable individual, but on this, I'm afraid I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out on my principles." As a reminder, and Nigel Farage mentioned it just then in his tweet, this row is all about Tommy Robinson. Elon Musk says he's a political prisoner, and Nigel Farage, in the last 24 hours, went on television on GB News and said he'd, quote, explain to Elon at Trump's inauguration later this month that things aren't quite as they look. His words. Let's remind ourselves of that moment.
You know, Elon Musk and I will have different views on electric vehicles, on many, many things. Free speech is about agreeing to disagree, but equally knowing what you agree on. I'm not in the least bit concerned about what Elon Musk says about Tommy Robinson. I will, at the inauguration, explain to him that perhaps things aren't quite as they look.
So that's why this has all kicked off. Elon Musk seemingly taken aback by Nigel's comments just there, and that brought us the chaos of today. This is what I said just an hour ago about Elon Musk's intervention. I think Donald Trump, very shortly, maybe in the weeks or months ahead, will have Elon Musk out the door. Take a look. Elon's involvement in British politics today, in my opinion, shouldn't be taken too seriously. He threw Donald Trump a couple $100 million for the campaign very, very late in the day, and suddenly everybody thinks he's a political genius. Nigel Farage, meanwhile, he was supporting Trump when it was horribly unfashionable to do so, all the way back in 2016. Even through all the pussy-grabbing saga, Farage was the man to stick his head above the parapet and give some sensible context to what was going on. Farage also won multiple national elections in Britain with two different parties, the only person to do so. And the crux of all this is that I'd wager Nigel Farage knows best when it comes to his continual distancing of Tommy Robinson, which has only come, by the way, when he's been asked by journalists. And that's what this disagreement is all about. OK, so we've discussed what this means for Reform UK in the last hour, but crucially, what does it mean for Labour, the party in government? Well, a new bombshell poll out in the Mail on Sunday today shows a third of Brits think Keir Starmer will be toppled within a year, within the next 12 months, while two-thirds, they say he's doing badly just 6 months into the job. And there are strong whispers that the PM may even call a general election sooner rather than later. The chief political commentator at the Sunday Times, Tim Shipman, he's a shrewd operator. He wrote today, with potential chaos on the right, some close to Downing Street say conversations have taken place about whether to call an early election in 2027. One source told Shipman, the feeling is Keir doesn't necessarily want 10 years, but he does want 2 terms. I think 2027 is underpriced. Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Head of Communications at Popular Conservatism, Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Conservative peer and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Lord Colville Ranger, and the former Labour Party advisor, Paul Richards. Good evening, panel.
Good evening.
Welcome back. Delighted to have your company on a momentous day. Annunziata, what do you make of this whisper that Keir Starmer is considering an early election? Why would he do that?
It is a whisper. Politics is absolutely full of people who live and thrive on gossip, and I have a feeling it's not much more than that. But I thought the incredibly telling thing about Labour in that article by Tim Shipman was the report that one of Ed Miliband's colleagues, so I'm going to assume a fellow cabinet minister, said that it's a very inexperienced cabinet. The only minister who really knows how to work the system is Ed Miliband. And Ed is the one we don't want to be a success if we want to win the next election. And I think those kind of splits at the very heart of Labour this early on are really quite concerning for those on that side of the debate, which I'm not.
Yeah, it's a great point. We've seen it with Wes Streeting. He made some comments. Was it the Spectator Party the other day? He made some... I mean, it was framed as a joke, but he made some barbs about Ed Miliband, about, was it, who's the Louise Hay, the Transport Secretary, who went out on her sword. And there was some feeling then and some whispers that wasn't
today,
much welcome.
When he was doing the media round, answering questions on all sorts of policy areas as though he were the Prime Minister, the mutterings are there.
Yeah. Colville, what's your thoughts on this poll showing that people think Starmer will be out within a year? Not because there'll be a general election, but the likes of, say, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, of course, they'll be circling.
They will be, but I think it reflects what people feel generally about what this government's done in its first 5-6 months in power. They don't feel that Starmer's leadership has been effective. They don't feel that missteps have been made, wrong decisions are coming through. They can't see where the government is trying to go. There's been resets, milestones, missions, etc., etc. People, none of that stuff cuts through with people.
Yeah.
We were talking about it before. People want to see politicians deliver. Do what you said you'd do. Smash those gangs. Deal with growth. You said you'd bring growth to the economy. Bring it. Don't clobber businesses with more taxes, higher national insurance, and then say, we're going to get growth through the public sector. Doesn't happen. So people are concerned, and that concern, that pressure, will be felt by those people in the Labour Party, in Number 10, which is why conversations like the things that Tim Shipman, who is a very well-informed source, if it was coming from anywhere else, I'd be like, it's gossip.
Definitely.
But if Tim Shipman is saying that, then obviously, now they'll be wargaming these things. People will be thinking, oh, what if, what if, what if?
Yeah.
But yes, if they want to see 2 terms and two-tier Keir wants to see 2 terms Keir, he probably has to see it earlier.
Very good.
He probably has to see it earlier. But that would just be a wargaming thing. What they really need to do is focus on delivering for the British people, and then they won't have a problem.
Can I just ask, before I bring in Paul, and let's ask it, why do you think he would want 2 terms? Not necessarily 10 years, but does he want to be like his hero Tony Blair? What is it? Is it an ego thing?
Why did Trump want 2 terms? That there is a cachet to being re-elected, and I think that would be important to him. That if you win, crash and burn, and no one ever wants to hear from you again, it's a very different situation.
So you've got a mandate then.
It's a legacy thing, though. He's coming with this whopping, great, big majority. Anything except a second term will seem like a failure under Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
OK. Paul, can I ask you about... Have you heard any whispers about this?
Absolutely none whatsoever. I have to... I mean, I respect Tim Shipman too, but, I mean, the sources quoted are being close to Downing Street. The closest thing to Downing Street is the Red Lion, and I suspect that's where this has come from, which is the famous watering hole in Whitehall. It is just taproom gossip, I would say. Heard nothing of the kind, and I think Starmer, don't forget, has just won the Labour Party an enormous majority. He's the most successful Labour leader. But no, from the Labour point of view, he's done a very good job of getting us over the line with the big majority. The idea that you're now going to dump a successful leader...
Wasn't it Paul... Sorry, I didn't see us.
He's got the lowest overall rating, net rating, of any Prime Minister within 6 months since records began.
But that's the argument for why you go long.
Far.
Hang on, because that's a fair point. But the idea that it'd be better to go in 2027 than at the end of 4.5 years, the strategy is obviously based on a 4-year parliament. So the good news will come in the sort of year 4 after the economy's been fixed. They hope, absolutely.
I agree with that.
So why is going early going to help?
Well, can I just say, in this Sunday Times piece from Tim Shipman, the quote was from the source, because the right are in such disarray. This was written before all the events of today, with Elon Musk turning on Nigel Farage, saying they needed a new leader. What do you think Keir Starmer will be thinking today, seeing all this unfold?
Well, as I say, I think there's a certain amount of glee at one level, but also deep concern that foreign actors are intervening, whether it's China or Russia or Americans intervening in our political system. And I think, the thing about Wes Streeting is very talented, Angela Rayner, great, leader, all these things, but they're not circling in terms
of... You think Angela Rayner would make her a great leader?
I think she is a great, leader of our in cabinet.
What do you like about Angela Rayner?
I think she's got some pretty tough sinews to her. I think she's got a good backstory. I think she's getting the job done. What's wrong with Angela Rayner?
Just a diversity hire, then? Is it because she's a woman from a working-class background?
No, I think she's got the right politics and the right values too. Well, that's a debate for another day, isn't it? But I think she's part of a mix of people in the cabinet who are pretty strong. To this poll,
it could be a debate for a day that comes pretty soon, because,
don't believe a word of it.
As I said, approval ratings are at record lows.
Yeah.
There's no love for this government, even from people who voted for them. They've gone back on all their election promises and stitched up the people they promised to protect. So I would argue that conversation is going to come sooner rather than later.
I do disagree with that, and I think it is because there is the strategy of getting all the unpopular stuff out of the way early, taking those tough decisions, which we know have been tough. We've debated on this sofa endlessly, but as we get towards the end of a 4.5-year parliament, I think the situation will look very different, I think, and you go into that election with a bit of hope and a bit of optimism.
With all due respect, the one thing...
Well, whenever anyone says that, I always get a bit worried. You know what I mean?
You should be, because with all due respect, this government and this party said they would bring growth, because the one thing that the country needs is economic growth to pay for the public service.
And that's what we'll be judged on in 4.5 years' time. 4.5 years' time, we'll be judged on that.
It's been forcing that growth into the long grass. So People need that now. It's no point doing things that delays growth, that hampers
But come
the
on,
economy.
if you could just turn on a button and make growth happen in 6 months, then you would, but you can't.
You can have business-friendly policies. You
Not
can
in a
look
way
at
that's
how-
sustainable.
Yes, what does sustainable mean? Sustainable means a growing economy. Sustainable
Yeah,
means
month on
businesses
month
employing
growth.
people.
Yeah.
Sustainable means investment. If those things, if you do everything,
If it
that
was simple,
hampers
you lot
that.
would have done it.
No, but actually, that's what Rishi Sunak was doing. It
Paul,
wasn't,
can
and the growth figures have gone down since
Can I
Labour
just
come.
add, I've reminded you many weeks
Yes,
now.
go on, I know what you're going to say.
You know what's coming. Labour inherited the fastest growing...
And I will say the same from a very, very low base. You know, to grow from a very
But
low
it's now
base,
not
not
growing,
great.
so that's even worse.
I think that's the fundamental
Well,
point.
that's why we're going to go long, and we're going to go not 2027. That's why this is going to be a full
but
parliament.
It's about do it now, get people on side, show them that you understand that the economy is what matters, and then people will feel confident and things will change. But if you're telling us that the Labour Party strategy is 4 years from now, we may see something positive, I don't think Starmer will last.
The one thing
Disagree.
in Starmer's big defence is it's really hard to get rid of a Labour leader.
Well, and Prime Minister, even
Prime
harder.
Minister, even harder.
Yeah.
And that might mean that they can't shift him.
Yeah.
His popularity.
And don't forget,
is
most of
tanking,
the-
and it doesn't show. There's no reason at the moment that would change. That he has lost his own credibility. He's not seen as competent. He's not seen as trustworthy.
But-
those aren't things that a bit of growth turns around.
I would say, though, of course, the parliamentary Labour Party is very much in Starmer's image. I mean, the selection process meant that these were people very much on board with the project. So,
Yeah, but
and those are the ones
in
who...
politics, is there? Look how Boris Johnson was stabbed in the back by all the 2019 MPs, the intakes.
Well,
They
that's a
were knifed in the
lesson-
back when it suited them.
A lesson to be learned from that, I
Can I
would
ask
say.
you one question?
last
One
question.
question. Who do you think would be the next Chancellor?
I've no idea.
Because I think
That's
that
not
is
a question that's going to
fundamental
happen for many...
question that will be troubling some people in Number 10 right now, because I think a lot of the decisions, and you can see some of the narrative shifting to these are Rachel Reeves' decisions, and that's one of the problems.
She's going to be there for as long as we can see into the
Okay.
future. She'll be there.
Panel, thank you very much. Let's see how long Rachel from Accounts is in number 11. Who knows? Maybe she'll be gone before Keir Starmer. We'll see.